instead of we're hiring, what else would I say? I would have to ask a question or two. What is interesting about your company? What does your company care about? What does your company offer that most companies don't? Let's find that thing. And once I realize it's about support or professional development or impact or mission or performance or whatever it is, I can suddenly brainstorm 100 interesting things to say that fulfill one of those models. You want to talk about performance? Let's talk about performance. Let's talk about what performance looks like at that company. Is it the kind of performance where everyone's tested and everyone feels like they're being pushed to do their best possible work? Is it the kind of performance where you are supported and allowed and given the resources to do your best possible work? Suddenly, all sorts of interesting conversations, interesting headlines, interesting messages come out that will not appeal to everyone, but that's good. You don't want everyone to say, "Oh, you're hiring? That's great. I want to be hired." What does that even mean? You want people who want what you're offering, which is, in this case, performance, right? The we're hiring job post is akin to a restaurant saying food, and that's it. I mean, who goes, you know what? I don't want the burger place. I don't want the Italian place. I don't want sushi. I want food. And that's all it is. And who engages with that? But that's the truth.
Hello, I'm Denise Chaffin, and I am your podcast host for Talking TA. And today I have with me my new friend that I met at RecFest, James Ellis. And James Ellis is the founder, CEO, and chief brander. Anyway, I should say that in an English accent with Employer Brand Labs. And James, welcome. It is so great to have you on.
I'm thrilled to be
And
here.
so let's talk about Brand Labs, what you do. This is like super exciting.
So I'm James Ellis. I've been doing employer brand for more than a decade now. I've done it inside large agencies. I've done it inside companies. I've done it as a consultant. I've written 4 books, podcasts, newsletters, articles, videos, you name it. It's all over the place. I talk a lot about employer branding. So I'm super excited because as someone who was effectively born an agnostic marketer, and I've done every kind of marketing under the sun. I've done B2B and B2C and nonprofit and event and pharmaceutical and state government marketing and higher education marketing. Yes, these things exist. You don't want to know. I was thrilled to kind of find this weird part of marketing where the rules were just ever so slightly different, where the rest of marketing is about, I want more. And I feel like I should break into like a Broadway tune when I say that because it's really appropriate. It's like they worship at the church of more. They want more eyeballs and they want more reach and they want more impressions. They want more clicks and they want more leads and they want more and more shelf space and share of wallet and more, more, more. And then the chorus line kicks in and they're kicking more, more, more. Like they all want more. And here is this tiny, tiny, tiny little piece of marketing that says, nah, more is stupid. What we want is quality. We want better. We don't want more. We want better. Because when we're filling that requisition, who cares if we have 1 million candidates if none of them are any good? More is not better. What you want to do is not put more candidates in that application. You can't. You have to put the best hire into that seat. That is the goal. And to me, it's like saying it's kinda like if we lost 20% of our gravity here on Earth. It's like it's a change that affects everybody in a slightly weird way. It's not radical. It's like I don't need to kind of figure out what to do with my change falls out of my pockets because it's not like gravity's off, but it's different enough that all the normal rules don't quite apply, and so you have to rethink them, and that is what I'm obsessed with. I think employer branding is so exciting because it is different, but also it's helping recruiters and recruiting teams and companies hire better, hire more effectively, hire more efficiently. I could do this for an hour. Please, Denise, stop me. Get the big hook. Get the big hook. Let's move on to an actual question, or otherwise I will monologue right over you.
Oh my God, that is so funny. Okay, my first question is how? Let's do the how are you helping employers brand and also get those quality moving out of more to quality? How are you doing that?
So it comes down to a very simple idea, and that is you don't want more, you want better. And that means what the heck does better mean? You want like just Nobel Prize winners and laureates and Fields Medal winners. No, there's only a handful of those people, and they're already very, very well employed. What you want is the best fit. Now, there's part of that word that is fraught, right, with some challenges, and I am not the expert in that space, but I am very cognizant of those issues. But we're going to set that aside for the moment. What we're trying to say is there is a lid for every pot. You want a data scientist. Do you want any data scientist, or do you want a data scientist who's really excited about small business for some reason? Oh, you are. Great. Guess what? There's 12. Okay, great. Now you have to figure out, you don't have to communicate to 50,000 data scientists. And what do you say to 50,000 people whose only commonality is that they like numbers? Oh, God. Hey, guess what? You're whipping out that we're hiring post again, and it's going to be just as useful as the last time, and it isn't. So you're in trouble. But if you're talking to 12, oh, whoa. You could say something of meaning. You could say something interesting. You could be a human. You could be curious. You can engage. You are able to do better recruiting because of that. What happens is that candidate who is seeing all these different, we're hiring, join us, great opportunity, great culture, this, great, that all sounds the same. They all look the same. The job postings, the career sites, all that stuff is same, cookie cutter, same. And there you are talking about this really weird thing about small business, which they happen to be really excited about. And suddenly it's like it's the darkness, and there you are with a torch. You're just standing there saying, I can talk to you about something you care about in a way that no one else can. And guess what? You're not trying to beg them to engage. You're trying to beg them to apply. You're having a conversation. They're super excited, and they show up because it is a match. It's a lid for every pot. When you get into that idea, and by the way, this is not new. This is how headhunters think. This is how executive recruiters think. This is not rocket scientist. I am not inventing the wheel. I have not, cold fusion far beyond my grasp. However, most recruiters act like this is mind blowing. Like, no, 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 no. That's just because recruiters have been trained, get more applications. They have been trained in this idea that the best way to get more needles is to make a bigger haystack, which, of course, on the face of it, makes zero sense. That's not where needles come from. But look at our vendors, look at our processes, look at how our ATSs are set up, look at how all this processes are set up, and they're all designed for, well, if I cast a wide enough net, eventually someone will apply who is worth hiring. And I think that sounds exhausting. And I don't want to do that. So employer brand is there to say, look, you don't want 1,000 applications. You want two. The one you hire and the one you almost hired who was so good and you were so sorry to see them go. And anything beyond that is literally wasted energy, time, money, and effort. So don't do it.
I love this. I love this. In fact, we were working on a huge hiring ramp for Lamb Research a few years ago. And the more is better thing kept coming up with the hiring managers,
Yep.
right? And the
Yep.
business leaders.
Because they don't know. They don't know
Well,
because
no,
it's on the recruiter's seat to figure
right.
out how to winnow that 14 trillion pounds of applications down into 5 people worth showing them to. That's not on
Well,
there.
and I
That's
said 5 is the limit, and I said 5 is the limit. And if we can't find your ideal candidate with the top 5 candidates that we find,
that's on
then
them.
then we need to go back and recalibrate the search, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Here's the other piece of it, though, and I love your part about the 2 ideal. How do we get those hiring managers? Because this is not just in one particular segment. This is a global that we still have that mindset where we need more is better and 5 to 10 candidates. And not only is it exhausting, but it's a waste of resources. That's where, too, we're getting the bad candidate experience. Oh, I could go into a monologue.
If we can start by finding a way to remove all those ZipRecruiter ads off podcasts, that would be my first stop. Convincing the world that recruiting is easy, and it's you just pick the hire. It's like, oh, it's like a claw machine. You're just like, I just want the one candidate. That's fine. And we all know hiring managers are like, no, no, let's see if I can find something better. What we need to do is educate hiring managers to understand that, look, amazing talent is out there, but guess what? Here's this weird thing. They're people. I don't know if you were told this. They're human beings, and they have things they're worried about. They have other opportunities. They have other jobs. They have mouths to feed and mortgages to pay. So your job, hiring manager, is not to say, I want a insert job title here, which is so bland and vague that if I looked in LinkedIn, there's at least 100,000 people with that exact job title. That is not useful. What I want is to understand What makes a great hire in this circumstance? Do you want somebody collaborative or do you want a diva? Do you want someone who's got leadership potential or someone who's going to be really thrilled to get down dirty and finger dirty in that nitty gritty of IC work? What do you want? Do you want someone with a level of specialization outside of that field or do you want something interesting? And getting the hiring manager to understand what they really, really want and to spell it out is step one.
All right, so we have hiring managers who are seriously wanting between what, 5 and 10 people, right? At least. So how do we move this collective mindset from that mentality to 2 people?
Yeah, if there's any way we can get rid of those ZipRecruiter ads on podcasts and make it sound like recruiting is really easy, it's pressing a button, that would probably help. I mean, I'm not sure it's the solution, but it's certainly got to be part of it. Hiring managers have zero clue. Even the ones who like and engage and work with recruiters side by side has zero clue what it's like to be a recruiter. I only kind of know because I'm not a recruiter, but I work side by side with them all the time. And I know their job is hard. It is complicated. It is messy. And what we need to get hiring managers to understand is rather than think, let's cast a wide net, rather than say, let's get as many applications and then I'll let you figure it out. I'll let you go through all the sifting tools. And oh, wait, isn't there a tool that can just stack rank all these people as if it understands what I'm trying to do? It starts at, and I can't believe I have to say this, but it's true. It starts at the intake. You have to get super specific. What does this hiring manager really want? And the friction on the high intake is always that the hiring manager doesn't know, and they're nervous that if they get too specific, you won't be able to hire the perfect person, as if that recruiter is Google and it will only return 0 results. No, you gotta be able to say, "Look, let's get deeper into what you really want. Do you want that data scientist who has a small business experience or small business kind of forte? Or do you want a data scientist who's gonna be a leader or a data scientist who can be a nuts and bolts, work 24/7 kind of person? What is the data? You say you want a data scientist. What kind? One of my favorite conversations I had was working in my last day job, and they were looking for a project manager. Now, to me, project managers are boring. They check the boxes, they make the Gantt chart do what the Gantt chart does. It is true. It's boring, and it's just like and everything I know about project managers is that they're there to check the boxes. And I said, okay, to the hiring manager, I was like, okay, we can figure out something to say to get people excited about this role. I said, hey, just out of curiosity, what's different about this project manager or project management team from what most people would expect? And she goes, oh, we want the project manager to be the voice in the room. And it was like, explosion. Like that is such a great way of being very specific about what you want, the mindset, the approach, the skill set of what you want without having to say, here are the following 14 programs they need to. Who cares? You can learn a program. What you can't learn is a mentality. And when she said, we want them to be the voice in the room, not the people checking the box, but the person moving things forward actively, I said, that is a great way to describe this unusual version of that. And it was way easier to tell stories around that idea and way easier to hire around that idea. So hiring managers need to understand that they're not at a Burger King. They're not ordering the Whopper, but without the onions. What they need to do is say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what they're going to do. This is perhaps what they did in a past life that makes them incredibly prepared for this kind of role. Get deeper. And I know that recruiters walk in with the clipboard, they go, the piece of paper, they go, okay, I got my 12 questions I'm going to ask. You gotta get deeper. And that to me is where all this stuff starts. Because once hiring managers understand that recruiters can do amazing things, they start to raise the bar a bit, which I think makes recruiters nervous, but it's probably the best thing that could happen to them. It forces them to think deeper, think more interestingly, more engagedly, more creatively around the act of recruiting, which is exactly where we want them to be.
Very nice. I have to give kudos to one of my clients years ago, Medtronic, huge medical device company based in Minnesota. When we did our intakes, like you're talking about, we had 3 pages of my company. We composed our own list of 3 pages for the hiring managers, and they would help add more questions. But one of the things that they did that was very unique to their type of recruiting, and they were looking for quality. They wanted quantity too. I still had a hard time moving them off that quantity piece. And I would ask them, do you want quality or quantity? One hiring manager said, can't I get both? So, but what they did
Why
was
would you want it? But I get it. I get it. If you're saying if you were buying a car, I said, "I'm gonna show you the perfect car." And you're like, "How can you possibly know what I want?" I get that hiring managers want that sense of agency in this model, which means they need to see more options, but they just don't understand that asking for more options doesn't just affect them and the recruiter. It affects all those people whose time and energy you're wasting. And every single one of them you say no to, either directly or indirectly, is going to be much, much, much less inclined to even respond to that recruiter ever again. It's not like there's always more fish in the sea. You are poisoning the well. Separate conversation. Back to you.
I know. Yeah, that's ghosting and yeah, yeah, all that. And wasting time, wasting people's time. We're not just wasting your time, Mr. Hiring Manager, we're wasting the candidate's time that could be a potential candidate for you down the road. But but the
Exactly.
one thing that Medtronic did that was so unique is they would provide links to the products that these people would be working on. And the links were so well done by their marketing departments. I mean, it was just you were just inspired at and I'll give you an example. During COVID, they came up with a respirator that would mimic the breathing pattern of the patients. So the patient not as many people were dying that were on respirators.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
they gave links to these, and the people we were recruiting for this project were so intrigued. Like one guy said at
Sure.
RecFest, "Don't be attractive, be compelling." And I love that statement. So, all right, carry on.
Totally.
I just wanted to throw that in.
No, I completely agree, and job postings are a great example. We have all been trained, poorly I might add, that a job posting is really a bag of bullets. It's where we store all these bullets, and that's all a job posting should be. It shouldn't have a video, and it shouldn't have a link to the products you'll be supporting, and it certainly shouldn't have links to the LinkedIn profiles of the manager who's hiring and to whom you will be reporting, or other members of the team, or photos of the office. God forbid we do anything like that. Now, I get that when you do that, and you push it through the ATS out to job boards strip that stuff out. But if you don't have a landing page for what your job is, and somebody said it on the internet somewhere, and I've kind of stolen it, I'm trying to absorb it. It's the idea of you need to be a fan of your own work. And what we do when we put job postings out there, nothing there screams we are a fan of this job or this company. It feels de rigueur and legal and boring and almost angry, right? You're almost like spitefully recruiting. It needs to feel those landing pages need to feel like you are a fan of what this person is going to do, and I think that mindset shift is incredibly helpful to seeing all the various possibilities around the entire candidate journey of ways of embedding and connecting and proving that employer brand message.
Very good. All right, so then going back though to okay, we get to the and you mentioned it the kickoff meeting or engagement meeting with the hiring manager. What are some of the questions that we're not asking hiring managers?
Well, and this is one of those situations where I steal from the best, and so the first person I'm gonna steal from is Katrina Kibben. Katrina is all things job postings. They know exactly what they're doing. They have spent more time thinking about job postings than any other person I've ever met. And the question I steal from them is very simple. What did this person do in the past, in the previous life and previous experience that perfectly prepares them for this role? And I love that because it's almost like a Zen cone, right? It kind of opens up and flowers and all these things and allows you to really think, hey, you're hiring a manager for this team. Do they have to be a manager for a team? Could they have managed a Starbucks? Could they have managed a home? Could they have managed that situation where they were managing kids and an ailing parent in the one house? What did they do to be perfect for this? And it forces, like a good question should, it forces the hiring manager to kind of go, I've never heard of thought, I never thought of that before. And that's when you got something. That's some real juicy stuff, right? They let them kind of dig into that stuff. I think you should also be asking beyond thinking about skill, the perfect candidate will allow you to do what in the next 3, 6, and 12 months. I think one of the things we're only barely starting to come to terms with is this idea that this job posting you're writing is a lie. Not because you're a bad person, but because even if you accurately describe what this job is, how long does that last? Right? 5 minutes after that job posting goes out, it's already out of date. It's already the hiring manager's already got three more projects they're throwing on there, and it's going to require this skill set and this skill set. So rather than say, we have, and this is HR thinking, we have total control of the universe and all of time forward and backwards. And so we know exactly what this job will entail. And you go, that's such crap. Start to think about this is where you're starting, but why can't you head nod towards, look, in the first 3 months, this is the work you'll be doing, but we'd love to see someone who can get us into working with A or B or C. That is the kind of conversation in a job posting that's incredibly attractive. One, not just because it makes people understand that, oh, this isn't a job where I'm just treated like a cog in a machine, which, by the way, every job posting makes you feel like a big old cog and a big old machine. And all you got to do is hopefully get enough oil. It's really about saying, look, we're growing and we want you to grow with us. And this is the direction we think we're growing. And if that feels like a direction you want to go, one, isn't that more true? Isn't that more honest? And here's the magic word, authentic. And we can talk about authenticity separately. But to the candidate, they're saying, oh, this is a person who understands, and this is the hiring manager who understands where they're going, and I'm going to go with them. Oh, that's interesting. And if nothing else, you're gonna get way better cover letters and emails about that job because it's more accurately defined about what's going on and where the thing's going. That is useful. So I think if you start with questions like that and think about that for a second, your particular context, your particular need, your particular situation, you will come up with variations and ways of going deeper on that. But those are great ways to approach the standard of how many years experience in JavaScript should they have had? Check. How many blah, 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 should they have a degree? Check. No, they shouldn't. Like all that bull. Like that's just such garbage. And it's laden with so much baggage. It doesn't serve anybody. And this is a note I want to hit. I think when we come into this situation, we need to take a moment and realize that this is one of the few marketplaces in which no one is happy. The candidate's not happy. They're getting ghosted. They get imperfect information. They're being forced to make life changing decisions with minimal information, sometimes spinny information. The hiring manager isn't happy. It takes forever to find someone. That person is never a good fit. Most hiring managers think it's a 50-50 shot if that's a good hire anyway, even if they have all the information they can. Leadership hates it because it's not predictable. They go to their sales team and they say, well, gosh, my sales team can predict whether a sale is going to go through with was a reasonable level of expectation, and we can predict sales volume. Why can't recruiters do that? What's so special about y'all? The TA leaders hate it. The recruiters hate it. Every person in this process hates the way we recruit. And yet, we are so like, don't change anything. Don't ever change anything. Dig the heels in. We have all optimized around this bullshit version of doing things that we refuse to change. And that, to me, going back to the very first question, is where employer brand is the lever that will move the world. It will move, if not the whole world, certainly the TA world to a better place.
The other question too that's been very helpful with some clients has been, so is this a replacement position or is this a new position? Why was this position created? If it's a replacement position, now here's the part B of that. If this is a replacement position, well, I should say part B and part C, why did the first person leave? Number one, right? And not only that, but is the person who's replacing the person who left going to be doing the exact same role? Or is it going to be a different role? And you would not be surprised how many hiring teams have said, well, no, I guess it is going to be a different role because we're going to add on this, we're going to take off that because we don't need that anymore. We changed that tool or we changed that function or that process. So, yeah, I guess. So they're using, like you said, an old job description. And now you've asked that big question, how is the role going to change from the last person in it?
We've all heard these stories of the hiring manager saying, oh, I wrote the job posting and had 2 bullets. And I thought, well, that's not enough. So I wrote a bunch more. Like, well, why? If the 2 bullets describe the job and what you want, shut up. You're done. Go home, find a hobby, do something else. This need to say it doesn't look like everybody else's, that monkey mind kind of focus of let's make it look like that's there's so many levels to which job postings are problematic at best and hindrances at worst.
Right, right. Well, and I mean, there's just so many questions too that play into this. And you talked about what the person is going to be doing for the next 3, 6, 12, 9, 12 months. Those are hugely important questions. And not only that, but the candidates
Absolutely.
ask those questions. The candidates want to know if you're going to interest somebody a passive. Okay, let's talk about passive versus the low hanging fruit, as they call them, candidates that are open to work or looking for a new position.
Or
But
trolling
let's
the
say that
job boards.
yeah, trolling job boards. I like that one. But if you are taking a passive candidate who's not looking, but they are your ideal candidate, now we're getting into the weeds, right? So you're going to look at that person and you're going to say, God, this is the ideal candidate. How can we get them out of XYZ company into our ABC company? What's the plan there?
And honestly, that's a great intake question. Let's start there. Let's say, look, what is the question most candidates ask about this job when you talk to them? That's a great question because that is if and here's the problem. Recruiters are trying to get this information so they can fashion a job posting or at least use it as a screening matrix by which they kind of evaluate potential candidates. That's only half the story. Here's the other part of intake. You need to kind of level the employer brand recruitment marketing function into this by saying, one, what get all that information. What are the story? What are the questions people ask? Because that is the stories you should be telling. That's what will attract people and kind of flesh out what this is. The other side of it is because I'm incredibly Machiavellian when I need to be, is that this moment at the intake, the whatever you're calling this, the talent strategy meeting, which is way better than intake. I completely agree. The talent strategy meeting is the I know. It's like it makes recruiters less of a order taker and more of a strategist, which is what they are. Moving on, separate conversation. And this is the point at which you have maximum leverage over the hiring manager. Because how many recruiters would say, "Oh man, yeah, this hiring manager really wants X, Y, and Z, but they won't do anything. They won't post anything on social. They won't make a video. They won't do anything to help promote it. They won't help me source. They won't leverage their network. They won't. They've put it all on me." Well, guess what? This is the moment where you can get commitment from them to do that which you will. So you can ask question 17. Hey, are you going to commit to recording a 30-second video about this role that we can use to promote? Yes or no? Well, they want something from you. This is the point at which you can ask things from them. You should not be, Andrew, you want fries with that. That's not any way to be. That's no way to live. This is where you go, great, I can do that. And this is what you can do for me. And I think Amy Miller over at whatever, I can't remember the name of her Amazon chat part that she owns, Coupier, I think is what it is. She talks about how she tells her hiring managers, I will be as committed to this role as you are to helping me commit to filling it. And that is like, they should put that on stone tablets and wander down from mountaintops every other day saying, this is the deal. This is how this game gets played. And if hiring managers don't want to play, guess what? Back of the line there, kids. You get whatever last vestiges of time I have left in the day for you, which by the way, best of luck. I'm not going to commit. I'm not going to work for you. I'm not going to sweat for you. I'm not going to work at this for you unless you are willing to work with me.
I remember one of the LinkedIn conferences I went to several years ago now, and they had a workshop about that, about the hiring manager that basically takes the job description, kind of makes it paper airplane, sends it over the other side of the cube to you. Here's the job for you to fill. And you're looking at it going,
Incoming.
no, your response is, this isn't my job, it's yours. We're going to meet halfway on this. This is your position to fill. I'm here to support you and to help you fill it. But this is, keep in mind, this is your position for your organization. All right. So let's get that knocked out first.
And they see the value.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go right back to brass tacks. If the recruiter kills it, do they get a bonus? No. But if they kill it, that team can produce more. Do they get a bonus? Yes. Okay. Now let's work together.
Yeah. I think you've hit a huge point, though, also, James, in the talent strategy meeting, because I think it sets a different mindset for the hiring team walking into that meeting.
100%.
Because we've heard intake meeting, which to me sounds like you're checking into a hospital, kickoff meeting, which sounds like you're going a sporting event or a sales conference, right?
Yes.
Engagement meeting, which means you're getting ready to be an event planner for a wedding. I mean, so there's different there's different mindsets around the names of these meetings. So starting there,
100%.
I love your idea. I think this is fabulous. Talent strategy
Is
meeting.
there a
Have you coined the phrase?
is there a no, I have not, but I happily share it with anybody who wants it. I mean, honestly, is a recruiter alive who does said, I don't want more respect for my hire managers? This is how you start. Why not do this? Why not shape it's all marketing. Shape it to be what you want them to think of you.
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, so let's move on to step number 2. All right, so we're in that meeting. We've knocked out some really good points about the not just the position, but let's talk about the team that you're going to be working for, because that's another important candidate question. Especially keep in mind, let's pretend everybody is a passive candidate. We don't have any low hanging fruit for these positions. Okay. So let's just go ahead and pretend that that's our scenario. And maybe that's how we should start out a strategy meeting. Okay. Let's say, Mr. Hiring Manager,
Honestly,
that there are no available candidates and that we have to headhunt this position. Because when we say use the term purple squirrel, I'm sorry, that's a cute, fluffy little way of describing we're headhunting. So if we go into the meeting with the idea that this is a headhunt and that you're going to literally be contacting passive candidates who aren't looking, let's go to step 2. How are we going to describe your company and your team and the product that they're going to be working on?
two parts to that. First off, and I think this is the easy part, is simply that the idea that you have to headhunt, that you have to talk to people and engage people who are not on job boards, who are not looking for a job. Saying we're hiring is not useful information to them. It's like saying, "Hey, James, do you want some shampoo?" Guess what? Not as such. Not right now. Thanks for calling. Okay. Saying you have a job is valuable to someone looking for a job. Saying you have a job to someone who's not looking for a job is like useless. So there's that part of it. And I think if you start, and to me, I think most recruiting gets better the second they let go of that we're hiring post that they put everywhere. Get rid of it. I don't care if it came with a pretty Canva graphic, throw it out. Anyway, once you have that. So in terms of having to engage those people, if you can't say we're hiring and that's not enough bait to get their attention, what are you gonna say? And that's why I think when I think about job postings, my model is very often I look at what companies already say. And what companies love to do is talk about how great company is. They would happily tell you we're the 14th largest bullshit salesperson in Reno, Nevada, or whatever the heck they do. We've been established since 12,000, since the year 12. We were wonderful and we're huge and we do blah, 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 company, company, company. And he goes, we're looking for someone to do a thing. And you're like, well, how does this job help that company? What is the ladder that gets me here? I'm just gonna be an HRBP. How am I helping? How am I doing this thing? So to me, my model, which is not an A plus model, I will again, Katrina Kibben is the master at this, and they come from a whole different point of view. I come from it from a how do I get every company to have a B plus job posting? Good, useful, valuable, does the job. Could it be copywritten better? Sure. But this is as bulletproof B plus as you can get. You've got the standard boilerplate of why the company is great. You're going to write it and you're going to connect it to the brand and you're going to talk about why the company is different, and that's all good. And you're going to use it for every single one. And if you're smart, you put a headline above it. Okay. Then you have a paragraph about the team that job is in, because the team very rarely do individuals truly impact the company. There are very few Johnny Ives and Steve Jobs out in the world, right? And Steve Jobs is already the CEO of that company at the time, so I think that was already pretty well defined. But there are very few people for whom an individual effort yields company changing results, very infrequent. So you have to have an intermediary step about talking about the team. What does this team do? And specifically, how does this team help the company make that impact, that dent in the universe it wants to make? And then you talk about the role, which says this is your place in that team. So it's like going big and you bring it down in the reverse. It's journalism, reverse pyramid, inverse pyramid. You go big company, then you go to team, then you go to person. And once you have that linkage connected and you say, oh, I see how this role will actually make an impact on what the company's doing. I understand how I'm driving value. So I'm not just this spinning cog. Now tell me more about what this job is doing all day. What's the culture like? What's the manager like? That sort of thing. So to me, if I'm thinking of job postings, that's my approach most times.
Most people understand generally who the organization is you're going to be speaking to and what they do. I mean, and again, if we're going back to a passive candidate who's not looking and they're interested in that company, they're interested in what they do, who am I going to be working with? Who am I going to be working for? Right?
Or the company's so big, like a Google, there are 4 trillion teams in that company. What the company does, but how does that team impacted. It's over here. Their job is to, I mean, it's such a weird niche role, but in bigger companies, you have all these functions that it's not clear how this role it connects to that larger idea because we generally, from the outside, especially on bigger companies, we have very thin, facile understandings of what the company is doing all day. We know they make their money via X, but we don't always know all the things that are entailed to make that happen. And so that's where showing about how the team works inside that larger kind of idea helps connect that dot and makes that more clear.
I love it. I love it. Okay, we were talking about kicking out a term.
Oh, yeah. So anything we can do to get rid of the "we're hiring," "join us," "great opportunity," "great company," "great culture," the "we're hire" I call it the umbrella for me is called it's the "we're hiring" generic post, and I see them everywhere. And hey, guess what? I know you're in Canva getting them. Hey, guess what? Do you know how many templates Canva has that say "we're hiring"? Denise, you want to guess? How many templates does Canva have? Guess.
100.
20,000.
So what does that tell you?
And
When
they
a company
all feel the same. It means that you can change the color all you want on that message, the message is still the same. It doesn't matter.
well, I think the term "we're hiring" is it can have a negative connotation to it as well. 2 things come up for me when I see it. Are you hiring like a big hiring ramp where you're hiring like hundreds and hundreds of people? So it would be like a cattle call, as I call it, to go into your organization and interview with your teams. So in other words, am I going to be one of thousands of people interviewing? So to me, that it's got this cattle call connection to it when I see we're hiring. And the other
Because what it's saying is, we're not hiring someone specific, we're hiring someone generic. And thus, anybody looking for a job should be interested in this thing. And yes, thus the cattle call.
Yeah. The other thing that comes up for me when I see the term "we're hiring" is why? And why do you keep that sign up? Do you have a revolving door operation?
I mean, honestly, the real answer is because they can't think of anything else to say.
Well, they're following suit. They're
They
following
can't, like, yeah, I mean, that's it, but
have an
that's where
original thought.
brand oh, hold on, no, hold on, I don't want look, as much as I would happily throw recruiters under the bus for some of these things, and I have been known to from time to time, I won't
It's
here,
okay.
because the company has not done the work to say, "This is how we're different," so that a recruiter can say, "Oh, I know what to talk about," because if my company looks, acts, feels, sounds like this company, I guess I'll just do what that company does too. And so it's the company's lack of strategy around their talent, it's their lack of brand, it's their lack of differentiated value that forces the recruiter to say generic things. And we're hiring as the most generic of the most generic. It fits the bill, it just doesn't do anything. It creates that illusion of effort and illusion of work, but it doesn't result in any actual outcomes. And it's look, if I were to say, instead of we're hiring, what else would I say? I would have to ask a question or two. What is interesting about your company? What does your company care about? What does your company offer that most companies don't? Let's find that thing. And once I realize it's about support or professional development or impact or mission or performance or whatever it is, I can suddenly brainstorm 100 interesting things to say that fulfill one of those models. You want to talk about performance? Let's talk about performance. Let's talk about what performance looks like at that company. Is it the kind of performance where everyone's tested and everyone feels like they're being pushed to do their best possible work? Is it the kind of performance where you are supported and allowed and given the resources to do your best possible work? Suddenly, all sorts of interesting conversations, interesting headlines, interesting messages come out that will not appeal to everyone, but that's good. You don't want everyone to say, "Oh, you're hiring? That's great. I want to be hired." What does that even mean? You want people who want what you're offering, which is, in this case, performance, right? The "we're hiring" job post is akin to a restaurant saying, "food," and that's it. I mean, who goes, "You know what? I don't want the burger place. I don't want the Italian place. I don't want sushi. I want food." And that's all it is. And who engages with that? But that's the truth.
Oh my god, that's such a great analogy. I love that. Food. Oh my gosh, I was gonna ask a question and now you threw me off my track. Oh, that is
I broke
hysterical.
your brain. I love it.
You broke my brain. Oh my god. Well, let's go back though to to the replacement, the replacement words, your taglines to bring
It's just it
people in, okay, your
yeah,
taglines. Battle cards, they call them battle cards, right? Where you've got a company, I know some of the big semiconductor companies do 'em, and they've been good. They've actually been good. They've been helpful because they have information about when the company started, who they've acquired or who acquired them, how much money they made, last year, how much they
the
anticipate
rumors
this
around what it's like to work there,
what
the
it's like to
rumors
work
of their
there.
culture, the rumors of their management style,
Products,
all that stuff,
regions, yeah,
absolutely.
everything. And you can literally send that with a copy of the position description to the candidates. And I'm telling you, that was actually a very helpful, successful little bit of data. And it was all on one little like they call I don't know why they call them battle cards. That name should change.
Well, my understanding of battle cards is that it's when you have a fairly finite set of competitors, and semiconducting is a perfect example. And you can say, don't choose us or don't choose them because they're known as working people to death where we offer support. But of course, when you work people to death, they may get higher salaries and expect higher performance and reward higher performance. So it's not so much a we're good and this is the ways we're good. It's a more about how do I help people understand the options? Like if you're choosing between PwC and KPMG, I would go same company. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they are the same company with the same offerings, with the same pay structure, with the same kinds of people doing the same kind of work. I know that people on the inside would say, "Oh, buddy, you don't know jack. You don't know anything you're talking about." And they'd be right because I don't have that insider knowledge. I haven't seen the the very minor differences between these companies that in comparison, those minor differences are like massive differences when you're choosing between the two of them. So battle cards, my understanding has always been about how do you've got someone on the phone and you got someone on the hook and you're talking to them and they say, oh yeah, I'm also talking to this company. You go, okay, I know what I'm up against. I have the information, the intel I need to say that's what they're getting offered here. Now I know the things I need to talk about that will make them see those differences clearly and increase the likelihood that they will pick us over them.
Yes, yes. No, and I like that. And I think and to me, it was helpful. It was a very
Oh, sure.
helpful because, you can direct people to websites all day long, but then they gotta be clicking through pages and pages and pages. If you have everything on one little yeah,
Look, there's a lot of information about our companies online, and not just on our sites, but on other sites and other sites I will not name that sound like see-through windows, but not quite windows. They're the other thing, right? We don't want to have to give them any more press than they already have. There's so much information out there, but the way that information is structured, it's kind of like handing someone a puzzle without a box. Have fun. Like put it together yourself, figure it out, inference. And I think if we own part of those platforms, it is on us to define the frame through which we ask people to look at us. And I think the battle cards example is a perfect example. Like, look, of the 100 things you could learn about our company, what we'd like you to know about us, or the way we'd like you to think about us, is that we do this and we offer this and we care about that. And that is the core things. Now, is that an EVP? Not really. Is it close? Kinda. Is it solving for the same kind of problems an EVP does? Yeah. Is it solving for the same kind of problems an employer brand does? Yeah. And I'm very non-dogmatic. I know that EVPs have structures and architecture and definition around stuff. An employer brand has similar things, and they're all effectively trying to do the same thing, helping candidates make a choice. And the battle cards are just doing the same thing. How do we help them make an informed choice? Because people who make informed choices stick around longer. They feel like they can set proper expectations. And that starts by setting the best possible frame, the one that's most accurate. Now, when I say frame, frame is one of those kind of semiotic languagey things that people gonna go, what the heck are you talking about, kid? I'm like, I get that. I get that. If I were to tell you there's this amazing movie you've never seen, wink, wink, called Titanic, and it is an amazing action movie, you would walk into that movie and you would see an action movie with a very nice love story to it. If instead I told you Titanic's a great love story, you would say, that is a great love story with some action to it. If I said it's an amazing disaster movie, you said, yeah, it's an amazing disaster movie. And because I felt such pathos for these people going through all these challenges, it made me feel the disaster more. Those are three different movies, my friend, all because I set your frame. So do I want you to like look, Ferrari doesn't say you should buy us, we're the most cost effective. Of course not. Their frame is sex and money, the whole thing, and performance. That's their whole frame. They don't want you to see, oh, wow, it costs how much for those tires? Hey, sex, performance, money. That's what it's all about. Honda, it's a nice car. Is it sex, money, performance? No, it's about efficiency. It's about reliability. It's the frame they want you to see and evaluate all the information through. So, as your candidates going to all these various sites, and yours are included, you need to be the one setting that frame. Think of us as blank. Now, for anybody who watches Mad Men, and I love Mad Men, they do a there's a scene in which they frame everything through the lens of Gilligan's Island. They're talking about margarine, and they say there's one of the margarines is the Mr. Howell. It's the expensive margarine, and one of them is the professor. It's for smart people, and one of them is the Marianne for everyone, and one of them is Ginger for the sexy. Like everything has this sense of place and frame. They're positioning games, and you need to set your frame. Otherwise, other people will set your frame for you. And the way this happens is that you go from Facebook, move fast and break things. Isn't this a fun, exciting, sexy company? To Facebook, move fast and break things like democracy. That's bad. Like that's that you have to own and control your frame. Otherwise, somebody will control it for you.
I love this. James, this is fabulous information. Okay, so let's say that we have done our meeting, we have found our hard to find candidate, we presented them with some really great information, a video, a battle card, whatever is going to
Something
attract
that
you in.
differentiates us. Yes.
Yep, and now we've
Yes.
talked to you about the team, you're interested in meeting the team. Let's go ahead and move through and get to the offer stage. And
Oh, I love this.
let's say that candidate gets an offer from a competing company simultaneously
I
or
don't
in
care.
parallel.
I don't care. I don't care. Here's the game about offers. First off, the the offer game is fascinating to me because it is the place where we spend the most amount of money and where that money is in jeopardy. It's like we've placed a big bet on this person. We spent $8,000 pushing an ad at them and getting them through the interview questions and doing all the rigmarole and spending all of our time looking at them do a case study and blah, blah, blah. Yes, you're very smart, blah, blah, blah. And it comes all to this moment. Oh God, yes. And all the, not to mention all the time you've burned from people in the interview loops from that conversation and everyone else's conversation. Like the cost is serious money. It's real money. And if you let that person go at this point, it is the point at which you spent the most money to get the least amount of return. Yes, you should be thinking about these things in those terms. So it's imperative that you take the offer stage seriously and not just the coda at the end of a larger process, the punctuation, if you will. If you do things right, if you have, as you said, a very interesting message that's put out there that differentiates you. Let's say it's collaboration. I like it. It's what I've been thinking about lately. You got a great collaboration message. And the person who clicks the ad or the person who responds to the recruiter who talks about collaboration, we now know something about that candidate. They want more collaboration. They didn't say it, but they didn't have to. No, I don't click on shampoo ads. So why would they click on an ad about collaboration if they don't want it? Okay. So that's just simple. And over the process, in the screening conversation, we talk about collaboration. On our career site, we talk about collaboration. We respond to Glassdoor ads. We talk about the level of collaboration we offer. In the job posting, it talks about collaboration. And in the course of the interviews, we've asked a question or two about collaboration and perhaps even shown examples, a video or from the team talking about how well they collaborate, both inside the team or across teams, blah, 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 blah. And there we are at that moment of truth. Now, normally you go, we're super excited to hire you. Here's the virtual piece of paper. You slide it across the table. And suddenly the entire conversation is about the number on that paper. The entire universe is that number. And in your case, in your situation, they got a number yesterday. So they have not only a number, but a number they can compare it to. But here's the problem. You got to get them away from the number. You got to show them that that number is a small part of a larger package. And you do that by saying, you know what, Susan? We're so excited to have met you, to engage with you. And we know something about you. We know that you are really looking for more collaboration in your work. You know that having collaboration is going to let you achieve more. It's going to lead to more professional growth. You're going to be better at what you do, and you're going to achieve so much because of collaboration. And we hope in the last 5, 6 weeks, you've learned how much we care about collaboration. And maybe you actually start to understand the way we do collaboration, what the collaboration means for us. How many times have I said collaboration? Keep piling it on there, kids. I We think that you get and understand and are going to work so well because you understand that collaboration isn't just a nice to have, it is a DNA level way of being and working. And that is why we want to offer you this. And suddenly they have to add the value of collaboration, something they don't get currently. So higher value than you think, plus the number on the piece of paper. And I guarantee you that those two added together is probably more than anybody else offered them. And that is how you use employer brand to thread it through the entirety of the candidate journey in every single way, intentionally leverage it, trigger it, talk about it, show it, prove it over and over and over and over again until it's not a nice thing to say. It's not a claim, it's a proof. It is real. It is as real as the wall I'm touching now, right? Is real. They have value to that. They can assign their own value to that. You can't. You're not allowed. You don't know what it's worth to them. But if you trigger it in them, they assign their own value to it and they add it to that. And suddenly, I've seen just basic level changes result in 17 to 20% increases in offer acceptance rates. And if you don't think that that's real money, do the math. 8 to 9 to $10,000 per hire times how many hires a year times how many hires you're losing from no's. That's real money. And that is the sort of thing that you need to talk to your CFO about because they need to know how much money's flying out the door because of this. And that's why change needs to happen.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. Okay, and you brought up a really good point too about the add-ons besides the money. Of course, it costs a company money to do this, but what I remember years ago, I was working for Motorola at the time, and they had the education packages, the education reimbursement, right, programs. And I remember, to your point, how impactful those were. And even if they weren't a lot of money, maybe they contributed $5,000 to that person's education per semester.
Often.
No, it's not. It's not. It is something. But those types of benefits, uh, I think that people undervalue that type of,
1,000%.
I mean,
1,000%.
that type of, what would you call it? Benefit, if you would. To or
Yeah.
I've already
Yeah.
said how many times did I say the word benefit? So, but, including, like you said, the non-monetary pieces. What's this gonna do for your career? How is your ca Now, another question I have, is it okay to talk about the success of other people in an organization? And I know that, like, when we were working with,
Yes.
yeah, one client a few years ago, the CEO of the company had started out as a technician for that company and had worked his way up.
Great,
Yeah,
great
so
story.
it was a great story to share because it offered internal mobility. I mean, and here he is, he's still there and he's still at the helm. So those types of stories I think are impactful as well. Talking about not just the success of the company, but the success, like, and you mentioned a while ago, of the team, of individuals working for
Of the
that company.
person. Yeah.
Because that's how those
Yeah.
are the more relatable stories versus talk about the success of the bigger company, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we have to always keep in mind what the way in which a candidate makes a decision. When they're looking at a job, there are three things they are always considering, and they value them differently. And those things are, what is the goal or mission of this company? What are we doing? What's our purpose? What's the dent we're making in the universe? How are we doing it? What's my day to day? What's my work life? What's my manager like? What's my collaboration? What's my competitive nature inside the company? What is my day to day experience like? And how am I being rewarded? What are we doing? How do we do it? What do we get when we get there? Now, candidates value those three things in different amounts. The person who works at Goldman Sachs does not care a lick of what the mission is because they only care about that reward, which is why they're happy to work 100-hour workdays because the experience doesn't matter. It's all about the reward. The person who works at SpaceX, who is not getting paid, who has to work with some pretty rough managers, they care about the mission. They want to get to Mars. And so if you understand that candidates want those things, and it's not, and the reward is a piece of it, but it's not the only piece of it, that what you're doing, how you're doing it, look, I will take a job that pays me 50,000 a year if I only have to work five days a year at it. right? So but you can't tell me that 50,000 is a low salary. Yeah, but if the other situations change the way I value that time and money, of course I'm going to take it. If you're telling me it comes with complete insurance, maybe I take it just for the insurance. Like there's so many considerations to add on to it. I'm almost surprised that when we send the offer letter, we don't send it in a spreadsheet where we say, first year salary, first year bonus, how much we will pay for your insurance, how much we will pay for your education, how much we will pay for your ancillary, your work from home costs, your computer. Here's all the things we are giving you: opportunities to public speak, opportunities to deliver this, blah, blah, blah. Line, big number at the bottom. That is really what you're offering people, right? And now, there are some of those things you can't value. The value, look, to me, the value of, hey, you're letting me speak on a stage, I will value value that way higher than people who are shy and don't like being on stage. I'm a loudmouth. This is what I like to do. So I will value opportunities to be on stage and talk where other people won't. But I'm less, if my wife does my insurance for me, I'm less inclined to care about your insurance package relative to someone for whom they are. That is where the insurance comes from. So you have to understand that everybody values those things differently, but you don't put that as a zero. In fact, if you were, I mean, look, and I hate to equate the two ideas, but I'm gonna. If you ever understood how a used car salesman operates and how they play that game of, is it the biggest, is the total price? Is it the monthly cost? Is it like they move the game around so that you don't see exactly how you're paying for this car, how much you're paying for it. Flip it around so it's a little more virtuous. We don't do a good job showcasing how much you're getting from this company. And we need to line by line say, hey, what's the value of being on stage? Well, I would value that about $5,000. $5,000. Hey, what's the value of having insurance? I don't see a value in that. Scratch that out. Hey, what's the value? And you could actually do the math right in front of them to say, look, salary is this, but the total value package we're offering you here without the clear coat underneath it, right, is this amount of money. Honestly, if for nothing else, the transparency you're presenting to a candidate increases your level of credibility by a factor of a zillion. How do you lose that? That is amazingly powerful.
Oh, I so agree. I so agree. That is great stuff. Very great stuff. One thing that came up at RecFest when I was interviewing my guests for my podcast, I was talking to them about some of the challenges, okay? And I think that employer brand goes into this, right? Right now, one of the biggest challenges that I heard at RecFest, and I've been hearing it from other companies and other people, recruiters, is going back into the office situation after working remote. That is a real thing. That is a real challenge, and I could hear some people were really in pain about it, and because they're working for companies and they're trying to broaden their pipeline of candidates again, but they have sometimes an ideal candidate. One woman was talking about having an ideal candidate who lived close to the office, but the person still wouldn't come in. So has anybody approached you? And again, too, I'm looking at who our listeners are, right? And who our audience is for this podcast. I mean, just trying to cover all bases here for employer brands, that could be a serious question and concern right now. How does employer brand suggest we handle that? Brand
It's a great question. I haven't had anyone kind of like asking to help them grapple with it, but here's how I would approach that challenge. These are jobs, meaning I don't care how much I love my job, you still pay me. You're still going to have to pay me if you want me to show up. It is an economic transaction. Now, inside that transaction, both parties are trying to maximize the return of value to them based on that transaction. The company's trying to get the most value and work and productivity out of you so they can sell it to do whatever they do. You're trying to get the most out of them so you can have the most money, time, effort, whatever it is, growth, status, et cetera, out of that. What happened is we made these transactions when the rules were one way, and over the past 5 years, the rules have changed. 5 years ago, right before COVID hit, if you said, I want to work from home, you'd be a weirdo. You'd be one of those rare people who demands it. And you're like, well, you better have some sort of weird ass special skill. You must know how to program in some sort of computer language that only six people know how to do it because it's from the 70s and everybody else is dead, right? One of those weird things you're like, I guess you're the only person who can do it. And that changed real fast because companies realized we can go to a virtual model, drive real value, create real productivity, and everybody's happy. And what happened is in that process, after we got over the turbulent level of those first couple of months where everything's chaos and we have to hold happy hours just to show that we're alive to other human beings, right? After that, we all kind of went, oh, yeah, this is the new normal. And now companies are saying, you know what? We like that other normal better. You're like, yeah, I bet you do. Well, you're paying for the buildings and you're not the ones paying for parking and gas. You're not the ones spending an hour in traffic each way or one way a day times five. Or the stress of, or having how hard it is to manage kids and family and other lives. When, look, I'm more productive at home because when I get stuck on something, I go over there and wash the dishes. And in the 10 minutes it takes me to wash the dishes, the problem gets solved in my head. I give myself the space to do that. If we've all been in office situations, and it almost always feel like there's very few people who would disagree with this. It feels like 80 to 90% of our time is going to meetings. That's the challenge. When you're stuck in the office, they want you your game is to look busy. And this is the problem, is that work had become sort of this weird kabuki theater. I'm going to pretend like I'm working. You're going to pretend like my work had value. And it was fed by this really weird toxic FANG thing where Facebook and Netflix and everybody else hired people they didn't need just so that the other FANGs couldn't get them. And they just sat them down and said, you're benched, but you're getting paid. So what do you care? Like there was some really best up approaches to talent, and it just changed the way we approach and thought about talent. Now, COVID comes, etch a sketch, shake it upside down. There we go. New game, right? Here we are. Going from you get to work from home every day, or you get to work from home 3 days a week, or whatever that is, to we have to be there in the office the same way. First off, things will change. I think jeans and shorts will be the level of the day. I think we will not go back to suits and ties. I'm sorry, companies who sell suits and ties. Welcome to the hats in the 60s for men, okay? JFK didn't wear a hat once. It's all over for that whole industry. I think we're entering that same world for tats. We're entering we're entering the same world for suits and ties. I think it's gonna be super informal. We're gonna be I mean, I'm wearing a denim shirt. Don't ask me what I got my on my lower half. It's gym shorts, right? It's whatever. But we're gonna move to a more informal model. We're also gonna have to move to a less meeting-driven model of work. Slack started to kinda knock at the tires at that thing. AI is gonna change that, but work is gonna change. But to the real question you're asking is, how does employer brand talk about that? The answer is you have to show it's of value to all parties. Hey, Amazon, you're demanding that everybody come back to work? Good for flipping you. How is that good for them? Because just mandating these things without saying this is why it's good for you is not a peer relationship. It's not a power dynamic that serves people who want to have some level of autonomy and agency and control over their lives. So, by the way, you have just asked 40% of your staff, who, by the way, are almost always the best staff you have, to go bye bye and find jobs elsewhere. Okay, but honestly, maybe Amazon's doing the math to say, "We're Amazon. We don't need them." I mean, we're not inventing another we're not we're not inventing ourselves. We're right, like Apple went from Steve Jobs inventing a future to Tim Cook managing the execution of that. They're different jobs, and Amazon might be saying, "Hey, right, Bezos is gone. He invented the future, and we live in it now. So now we got some new guy to say, Andy, to say, how do I maximize our investor return and stakeholder return or stockholder return on this execution?" Andy's team is not going to invent the next Alexa. They're not going to invent the next whatever it is, but they are going to extract the maximum value out of it. So like, you got to see the bigger picture. So if you want to go from everybody stayed at home to now everybody comes in the office, two things you got to do. One, create an experience in the office that benefits the people who have to now show up. And which means asking them, what do you really want? The answer is not foosball tables. The answer is not pizza parties. The answer might be offices. Like, look, I have been in the work model so long. I remember having an office with a door I could close, and I have gone in the 10 years since that day, I have gone to steadily increasing smaller desks at benches, which feels like, well, horrible, and it is, and it has no privacy, and I don't it's cacophonous, and there's a reason why I wear big old headphones whenever I work. Go back to offices. Go back to space. Go back to quiet spaces in the office. Stop with the demand that we all socialize together because we're friends. Ask what people really want. Two, talk about how this change benefits the employee. And I swear, Amazon's just the most recent example of this. I see all these companies saying we got to go back to the office, but none of them say why candidates work or why employees want this. So if you're going to do it, you have to change the math. It might be, hey, I think the thing we should be doing, companies should be doing is saying you can all stay home unless you want a 10% raise, in which case you come in the office. That seems like completely reasonable, a completely reasonable trade, valid, and that justifies your exactly. You can't just change the rules of the game halfway through the game and call it fair. It doesn't work that way. So from an employer brand standpoint, there are people who want to go into the office. I am not one of them. You may not be one of them, but I promise you there are people who really like the office. Hire them. Talk about the value of the office. Talk about how amazing your office is. But that's the thing. You can't just take what you always did and say, okay, jam it into this new shape. It's got to be stop, rethink what we're trying to achieve, rethink what the conversation is, rethink what the power dynamics and what the trade value is, then rebuild. That is really where we have to be.
Wow. Good stuff. I love it. James, this is fabulous. We'll have to have a part B, seriously, because I'll have more questions.
Oh goodness, I'll
Well,
try to
especially
drink
on
some
this.
coffee and bring some energy to that conversation.
Oh my god, you're so funny. Okay, so I have taken notes, copious notes here on this because I think this is a very important topic, and I think it's gonna be I think this topic itself, the on-site versus remote, I mean, I seriously, I could go on all day about this
Oh yeah,
because
yeah.
just of what the feedback that I get from people. So we probably should schedule a part B, but I mean, yeah, for sake of time, we probably will wrap up. So thank you so much. This is fabulous, fabulous information.
No, this is
And
fantastic.
and I
Thank you,
think that
Denise, for bringing me on.
my one huge takeaway, talent strategy meeting. That's my huge takeaway. Thank you.
I've said that for a while, and I keep banging the drum on it, but recruiters listen to me at various times, so I don't bring it out all the time. But that's if you want to be taken seriously, attach the word strategy to your title, to your work, to what you do, to your meetings. It changes minds.
It does, and it will. It change minds and mindset.
Yeah.
So, James, before we completely wrap up here, I forgot to ask you. Yes, how can people reach you?
Yeah, so I'm at Employer Brand Labs. That's my company, but really, I am obsessed, if you can tell, with employer branding. So what I've done over the last 10 years, I built a lot of resources and books and podcasts and videos and classes and all sorts of stuff. And I've put it all in one place. It's called employerbrand.ing. So employer branding. Yes, that's a website. Who knew that ing was a top level domain? Isn't that cool? So if you go to employerbrand.ing, all my resources there, almost all of them are free. So if you're interested in employer branding, go check them out, download some stuff, and hopefully that'll help, kind of change your mind of what employer brand can do. Cause I really think it is powerful.
Thanks,
Exactly.
James.
Exactly. No, glad to be here. Glad to have done this.
Yeah, me too.